So yes, to recap, I'm going to ask her just one question here out of your book here,
Yeah.
Maharishi's 40 verses on what is. And on verse 25, I'm interested in this verse. I think it's powerful for me
Yes.
in my journey of dissolution of this ego I thought. This I thought it's driving me crazy, right? It's confusing because it's confusing. That's all I can tell you. I know it's not real, but yet I think it's real. That's what's so weird. I can intellectualize it's not real, but yet I identify with this I thought and this mind and this body. I
No,
just
you don't identify with the I thought. I
what
thought is the ego. Ego is what identifies with the body.
okay, okay. And that's what he says here, right?
Yeah.
In verse 25, describes the false I as the formless ghost ego. He
Yes.
says it comes into existence by grasping form, by attaching itself to a body, endures by grasping form, by attending to thoughts or perceptions of a seemingly external world. It totally
Mm.
makes sense. And then he feeds and grows abundantly by grasping form and having left one form, it grasps another form. Um,
Okay. I
so
don't know exactly how it's written there. Wait a second. I'll just get um,
yeah, it's just the
my
first, yeah.
my translation of that. Um, because um,
It's on page 186 if you have the
yeah.
book.
Well, no, I've got my original translation because it was compiled based on my translations and explanations.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
um, uh,
And then,
that is the original explanatory explanation that I had given is grasping form. That
yes.
is projecting and perceiving the form of a body composed of five sheaths, namely a
Hmm.
physical body, life, mind, intellect, and will, as itself, it comes into existence, rises into being, or is formed. Grasping form, that is holding on to that body as itself, it
Hmm.
stands, endures, continues, or persists.
Hmm.
Grasp, so the first two mentions of grasping form, it comes into existence, grasping form, it stands. There, the form referred to is the body.
Okay.
It's in the third sentence where he says, grasping and feeding on form, it grows abundantly. There, it's referring to other forms. That is, having grasped the form of the body as I,
Hmm.
well, that is, it coming into existence and grasping the form of a body are simultaneous. They're one and the same thing because ego has no, when he says it's formless, what is formless has no separate existence. What
Yes.
separate existence is only for forms. Form doesn't mean just physical forms, it means any phenomenon is a form. Anything that has any distinct, any existence separate from any other thing is a form. So ego itself has no form of its own. Ego is not an object. Ego is the subject. But it has no existence independent of the forms that it grasps. So as soon as ego rises, it projects the form of the body and identifies it as I. That's all simultaneous. It has no existence independent of that form that it grasps. And the form also has no existence independent of ego. And it cannot stand for a moment. That stand there means endure. It cannot endure for a moment without constantly identifying a body as I. So throughout the waking and dream states, we experience ourselves as a body. That is what Bhagavan is saying in the first two sentences. In the third sentence, he points out, having grasped the form of a body as I, we don't stop there. Our attention goes outwards and we're constantly grasping other forms. But other forms we grasp are the, the forms of the world. in other words, all our perceptions, because the world has no existence independent of our perception of it. So our perceptions, our our memories, our thoughts, our feelings, these are all the things that ego is constantly grasping and feeding upon.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And since it cannot stand for a moment without grasping form, he says, leaving form, it grasps form. So the very nature of ego is to grasp form.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then in the next, sorry, do you want to continue your question? I just want to
No, I
clarify
think
about
this is.
that because this book, the book you have, that was compiled based on my explanations.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I don't, I haven't, I myself haven't read the book actually. So there's possibility that some places there may be slight misinterpretation. So as
Hmm.
I say, that second sentence,
Hmm.
grasping form it stands, that the form there is still referring to the body. It's only in the third sentence that it's referring to a multitude of other thoughts.
Hmm. 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 That's what it says here. It grasps another form, another body that it projects and perceives as itself in its next state, is what it says here
Okay, yeah, that's um,
on the
uh,
third sentence.
uh, no, but third sentence is the grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly. The fourth one is leaving form, it grasps form.
You're correct. You're correct. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Hmm.
Okay, leaving one form, a body that is projected and perceived as itself in one state, it grasps another form, another body that perceives as itself in its next state. Yes, that is it. This sentence, leaving form, it grasps form, it can it implies three things. And it can, or we can say it can be interpreted in three ways, but all three ways are valid interpretations. That is, the first thing it implies is since it is constantly feeding on forms, it's leaving one form, going to another one, going to another one. That's moment to moment. That's one meaning. Another meaning is in the course of our present so called life, we, throughout the waking state, we identify this body as I. When we go to a dream, another dream, we identify another body as I. So that's a second meaning. The third meaning is when the life of this body comes to an end. In other words, when this present dream ends, we then start a new dream. The dreams we have in our present state are dreams within a dream. That is, a whole of our present life as Bill or as Michael is one dream. And within this dream, we have sub dreams, so to speak. So the dreams we have at night are dreams within a dream.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is, within the dream of our present life, there are intervals or gaps that we call sleep. And within that sleep, there are further interruptions, which we call dreams. But it's all those dreams are dreams within this larger dream that we call our present life.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
So there, in my explanatory paraphrase, I just gave one meaning for that. But if I were to explain it in more detail, I'd explain it as I explain now. But that sentence, leaving form and grasp form, has three implications, three ways we can interpret it. All are equally valid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
And do you want to go on to the next sentence?
Yeah.
Because the next
Continue.
sentence is the most important one.
Yes. Yes. You want me
So
to read?
yeah, yeah,
Or-
yeah. Please read it.
Okay. So I believe here, if sought, that is, if it seeks, examines, or investigates itself, it will take flight because it has no form of its own, and hence it cannot seem to exist without grasping the forms of other things as itself and as its food or sustenance. Such is the nature of this formless phantom or fiend, demon, or evil spirit, ego.
Yes,
Therefore, investigate it or know thus.
right. So this is the most important thing. The
Mm,
um, the the word that's been translated as there as if sought, actually a more correct translation of it would be if seeking.
mhm,
But there's no subject and no object. I mean, what is to seek, what is not specified. But in the context, we have to understand if seeking means that if ego seeks its own reality, if it seeks to know what it actually is by keenly investigating itself, it will take flight. That is, it'll run away.
mhm,
Uh, that's a metaphorical way of saying it will subside and eventually dissolve back into its source.
mhm.
Because it has no separate existence, it cannot stand without constantly holding form. So since grasping is the very nature of ego,
Mhm.
we use the grasping nature of ego to undermine the ego by, instead of grasping form, we try to grasp ourselves. But we are formless. So when we try to grasp ourselves, ego thereby subsides and dissolves back into its source. That's one way of explaining it. The other way of explaining it is ego ego doesn't actually exist. We seem to be ego because we are not looking at ourselves. We're looking constantly at other things. But if we turn our attention back to see what we actually are, there's no such thing as ego to be found. That is, we cannot deny the semi-existence of ego so long as we're aware of anything else, because what is aware of all other things is ego.
Ego. Mhm,
But if instead of attending to other things, if we attend to ourselves, there's no such thing to be found. It takes flight.
mhm,
Bhagavan illustrated this with several stories. The best known story is the story of the the bridegroom's friend. That is, in old days in India, marriages were elaborate affairs. They usually went on for 5 days. So the marriage usually would happen in the girl's village.
mhm,
So the bridegroom's party would come from their village to the girl's village where the marriage would be celebrated. And so the girl's family will entertain the bride and all his family and friends and everything for 5 days.
mhm,
So the story Bhagavan told is one day a wayfarer was passing through a village and he saw preparations going on for a wedding. So he thought, oh, this may be a nice opportunity. So he waited a while and then he saw the bridegroom's party approaching the village. So he went to welcome them. And he led them into a village and then he started giving instructions to the bride's party. So the bridegroom's party, they thought he belonged to the bride's party. And the
mhm,
bride's party thought he belonged to the bridegroom party. So he
mhm,
had a very nice time. For 5 days, he was feasting and bossing over people and giving instructions and having a great time.
mhm,
Towards the end of the 5 days, all the other guests start to leave. And so finally, only the immediate family of the bride and bridegroom were remaining. And so they sat together and they started talking about who was this person, who was that person. So the bride's party asked, who was that helpful young man? They took him to be the bridegroom's friend. That is generally in weddings, like it's equivalent to a best man in a European wedding. They
mhm.
have what they call maple torum, the bridegroom's friend. So who was he? How is he related to you? And they said, oh, no, 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 he's nothing to do with us. We thought he belonged to your party. No, 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 we've never seen him before. When they started to make inquiries, he noticed what was happening and he quietly slipped away. Likewise with ego. Ego doesn't belong either to if you read the previous verse, then it's very clear. In the previous verse, verse 24, Bhagavan says, the jada means insentient. The jada body does not say I. That's a metaphorical way of saying it's not aware of itself as I. Because it's jada, it's not aware at all. The body is just insentient. And the body means all the five sheaths, not just the physical form of the body, all the five sheaths. So the body, the insentient body does not say I. Satchit means being awareness. That is what actually exists. Satchit does not rise. Because Satchit is just pure being. So it always remains as it is. It doesn't, rise means it doesn't come into existence. It doesn't undergo any change. It just is as it is. So Satchit does not rise. In between, one thing, I, rises as the extent of a body. Since it rises, it's not Satchit. But since it's aware of itself as I, it's not the body. So it's neither the body nor Satchit. But it rises as the extent of a body. So it rises identifying itself as a body. And then he says, this is Chit Jada Granti. Chit Jada Granti means Chit is awareness. Jada means what is not aware. And Granti means a knot. So it's the knot formed by the conflation of awareness with this insentient body. This is Chit Jada Granti, bondage. Jiva. Jiva means the soul. Nupame, the subtle body. Ego. This samsara and mind. So ego is neither Satchit nor is it the body. It's a spurious entity that rises in between. Just like that, the bridegroom's friend didn't actually belong to either party, but both mistook him as belonging to the other party. So he was having a great time. That's one story Bhagavan told. So as soon as they started to make an inquiry about him, he slipped away. Likewise, this ego. When we take ego for, well, ego is not an object. The I that is now talking and having this conversation, the I that is experiencing all this multiplicity, that is ego.
Yes. Yes.
What we actually are is the pure I, but ego is the pure I mixed and conflated with adjuncts. Okay, so that's one story. Another story Bhagavan told, this isn't so well known, but it's also a very illustrative story. This is particularly to illustrate that the sentence where he said, if seeking it takes flight. That is, there was a sadhu who lived in a small dilapidated temple outside a village. Temple means it's what's called a mandapam. It's a sort of hallway where during religious festivals the deity is brought there and seated there. So it's an open pillared hallway. So he was living there. Once a day he would go to a nearby village and he would beg his food. And he would come back. He would eat half of the food that he had begged, and kept the other half for the next morning to have when he gets up. And then he would go to bed. One day, when he woke up in the morning, he found his begging bowl was empty. So he understood someone had come and stolen his food in the night. So the next night, he decided to be vigilant. So he lay down, pretending to sleep, and tried to remain awake to catch the thief. But as happens to all of us when we begin our self-investigation, after some time we forget what we are. So he fell asleep. We either fall asleep or we get carried away by thoughts, but it's to illustrate that. So he fell asleep. And and after some time he woke up hearing some slurping sound. And he opened his eyes. He saw a dog was licking his begging bowl clean. As soon as he opened his eyes, the dog retreated and slipped away. So the next night he decided he had to be more vigilant. So he lay there without, and he managed to remain awake. But he was lying as if sleeping. And he was listening very carefully. As soon as he heard the soft paw prints coming close, that is the sound of a dog's feet on the stone slabs, he opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, the dog retreated. It remained at a distance, looking at him for a while. Seeing him looking at it, it slipped away. Next night, he was even more vigilant. So he was pretending to close his eyes, but he actually had his eyes slightly open. And the dog came and came to a pillar near the entrance of the mandapam and looked inside. He just opened his eyes and the dog stayed there, watched for a while and then retreated. The next night, the dog didn't even come to the mandapam. It stayed at a distance looking at him. Then he opened his eyes, seeing him looking at it, it retreated. The next day, it came only to a distant place near the edge of the road. There was just an opening in the hedges coming to the mandapam. The dog stood there and looked, and he looked at the dog. It slipped away. And one or two more nights it came, and then it never came back again. That's illustrating the nature of ego is such, but if we don't attend to it, it will do all mischief. All we have to do to put a stop to the mischief of ego is to vigilantly attend to it. If we attend to it, it'll keep its distance and it'll retreat. I sometimes tell another thing to illustrate this. That is, a baby bunny rabbit likes to come out and play, but it knows there's lots of danger around. There are foxes and all sorts of other creatures, so it's aware of the danger. But so long as it's not being watched, it will be happily playing. As soon as it becomes aware that it's being watched, it retreats closer to its burrow. But it looks at whoever is looking at it. If they continue to look at it, it'll retreat inside the burrow. If they go away, then they'll continue its play. And if it when it retreats to its burrow, first it just sits at the entrance of the burrow looking. If the fox or person or whoever it is looking at it comes closer, it withdraws inside the burrow. Exactly the same with ego. The more vigilantly we attend to ourselves, the more ego will retreat to its source. And this also illustrates attending to ego and attending to its source are actually one and the same thing.
Makes sense.
Sometimes Bhagavan said, use the example of a dog following its master's scent. However far away the master may be, by following its scent, he will take him back. He'll take the dog to the source of the scent, which is his master, whom he's looking for. Likewise, if we just attend to ego, ego will subside back into its source, and that takes us to the source.
Very good. Here's Sonia.
Yes.
She just came back. You want to? You got to look.
Namaskaram.
How are
Sorry,
you?
we started without you, but
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I
we're
know.
recording it so you can see it afterwards.
Correct.
Correct. Definitely, I will.
Yeah.
Right.
So we went over the ego. I've been struggling with verse 25 in this book about the. Anyway, it's a great verse, and it's about attending to ego, attending to self. That's their goal. That's our goal here.
Yeah.
Attending to this ego self,
What
and eventually, you can explain it better.
what seems to be ego is actually ourself. So attending to ego or attending to ourself is one and the same thing. Just like what seems to be a snake is a rope. So if you look carefully at the snake, what you're actually looking at is only a rope, as you will see if you look at it carefully enough.
Got it.
People often used to ask Bhagavan, in who am I? Is I the ego or the self? Bhagavan would invariably answer ego. The reason he answered like that is because of the question. In many places, he describes it as attending to the place where ego rises. The place where ego rises, that means the source of ego. That is ourself. That is the pure I. That is from our being, we rise as ego. So attending to a source means attending to what we actually are. But when people asked him that question, it was clear that they didn't understand that there are not two things, an ego I and a real I. There's only one I, but they didn't understand that. Because they didn't understand it, naturally Bhagavan says, attend to ego. Because if you attend to ego, you will find that what you're actually attending to is the real I, because there's only one I. What seems to be ego is actually the one real I. That is, the one real I exists, is just pure being. When that is pure being awareness, such it, when that is mixed and conflated with adjuncts, that is a pure I am, is what we actually are. When this I am, which is our being awareness, is mixed and conflated with adjuncts, as I am this body, that is ego. But the I essentially is the same. So it's not two eyes, but we have to choose between looking at this eye or that eye. There's only one eye to look at. Attend to that. Whatever it is you feel as I, attend to that.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
a
that's
common thing too. We
we
separate.
remember that. Yeah.
We always think it's two separate eyes.
Yeah.
They call it
Yeah.
the big eye, the little eye. Remember the big S, the
Yeah.
little s. But Michael's saying it's not
There's
because
only one.
there's only one. It's
Bhagavan says in Uludunabdi, being one is the experience of everyone, in verse 33.
okay.
So the question is this. So every time, I practice and I say, who am I?
Mhm.
And then, because, on the tough moment, like you have like those, where it's emotions you have or thoughts and raises, and I go ahead and ask, who am I? Then I have to remember the I is only the one ego. And usually, you just, because when those emotions come, you identify with them, whatever is the emotion or whatever is the thought.
Mm.
And then when you ask, who am I? I do feel like it takes me back to the center. I feel like, I don't want to say the fear or the concern or the anger or or the anxiety completely goes away, but I do feel like kind of being centered, kind of little piece. Feel like I can see it. I'm aware of these, and then that's the ego raise again. It found
Yeah.
a way to zen. So I just
Yeah.
asked the same question again, right?
Yeah. Well, asking the question, who am I, is not essential.
You gotta look at the camera. This camera.
Asking the question may be helpful to remind us to turn our attention back to ourselves. But the self-investigation is not the asking any question. Self-investigation, Bhagavan defines it very clearly in the 16th paragraph of Nana. He defines self-investigation as always keeping the mind on oneself.
See, it's not the ask.
Mm.
Everybody does this in every meeting I go to. They all do the same thing. We all do it. It's not, Michael's trying to teach us. It's not the ask. It's the attentiveness of that source and staying vigilant and keenly on top of it. Michael kind of sort of right.
Okay. Part of the reason for this confusion is because of the way it has, Bhagavan's words have been translated in English. In Nana, he says, he talks about investigating to whom, investigating who am I.
Who is this?
He doesn't say ask, but it's often translated as inquire to whom, inquire who am I. People, inquire has two meanings. It can mean ask a question, or it can mean investigate. It's in the sense of investigate that he's using it. He's not talking about asking questions. Merely asking a question, it's a mental activity.
Yeah.
It is an investigation.
And walk me through that again. I know Sherlock Holmes was an investigator, right?
Right.
He had Columbo when I grew up in the 80s or whatever it was an investigator. Is that, how do we describe it to me when I'm investigating the self?
Well, there are different types of investigation. There's the Sherlock Holmes or Columbo type investigation. A crime has been committed, and they follow clues to try to find out who is the culprit. So that's a type of investigation. There are other types of investigation. There's scientific investigation. And so many other, in this case, this is a spiritual investigation. But what all investigations have in common is that what is the primary tool of any investigation? It is observation. Why Sherlock Holmes was the mythical Sherlock Holmes was such a good detective was his powers of observation. He would observe, notice very small things that other people would overlook. And those small things provided the clue, and so he was able to solve the case. So likewise in a scientific investigation, if you're, say, a primatologist, you're studying the behavior of chimpanzees. You go to a jungle, you observe how they behave in different situations. You observe their eating habits, their mating habits, how they care for their young, how they protect themselves from predators. And so it basically you're just observing them. Even if it's an investigation, like if you're an astrophysicist, you're using an instrument, a telescope, to observe faraway things. But observation is the key thing there. So in any investigation, the key is observation. In some investigations, other tools are necessary. Like if you're a virologist, you use very powerful microscopes to look at the viruses. If you're a neurologist, you may use brain scans or something. So you've got a scanning machine. So, but these are all aids to observation. If an X-ray is taken, if we see an X-ray, it won't mean anything to us. But a trained radiologist will be able to look at the X-ray, and they'll observe certain things aren't normal, so they can interpret what they observe and get information from it. So, in many investigations, tools like X-ray machines, MRIs, radio telescopes, microscopes, all these tools are necessary. Even in an investigation where other tools are not necessary, we use our five senses. To observe anything in the external world, we need to use one or more of our five senses. We use the mind. So these are all the instruments we use to observe, but observation is the basic thing. In the case of self-investigation, we don't need any instrument. The only instrument we need is the mind in the sense of the power of attention.
Power of attention. See the mind and the attention. Observe.
Yeah.
Michael, on this observation, I like this observation.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is good for me.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing mindfulness, let's say meditation,
Yeah.
I'm observing, the thoughts as they're coming across the screen of the cloud, the sky, and the clouds, and I'm observing those clouds or thoughts, whatever they are.
Yeah.
I'm the observer, right? Or the subject object, right? So, okay, so that's in the meditational practice. So when I'm doing the investigation on the self, I'm observing, but what are the indicators, or is it the subtle, the thoughts that are coming up immediately? I then turn it back and observe those, or
No. This is self-investigation.
yeah.
Firstly, about this term mindfulness meditation, it's a bit of any type of meditation is an exercise in mindfulness. Mindfulness simply means attentiveness. So you may be meditating on, say, a name or form of God. That means you fix your attention on that name or form of God. You may be meditating on your breath. You may be meditating on some imaginary deity in your heart. You may be meditating on or just observing whatever thoughts, as you say, or anything. But every type of meditation, you're attending to an object of one kind or another.
Correct. I understand.
Except there's only one meditation where you're not attending to any object. You're attending only to the subject. That is self-investigation.
Yeah. See, you're going back to the I thought. Thought. Once you investigate it, there's nothing else there. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's why it goes away. And that's why we can then get, I guess, enlightenment, eventually.
This term, I thought, many people misunderstand it. There's some thought they have to look for called I. The term Bhagavan used in Tamil is nanenum ninevu. That means the thought called I.
The thought
But it is nothing, and he made it clear that it is ego. What he refers to as the thought called I is ego. Why he calls it the thought called I? Firstly, ego is a thought. It's a thought, but that is anything other than what actually exists, namely our own being, is a thought. So ego is the first thought and the root of all other thoughts. However, though it is a thought unlike all other thoughts, because all other thoughts are jada. That they are not aware. They don't know their own existence. They don't know the existence of anything else. Ego is the only thought that is endowed with awareness. That is why all other thoughts depend upon ego, because all other thoughts are appearances that appear only in the view of ego. So ego is the first thought. That's one reason why he called it the thought called I. The other reason is to emphasize it's not something, it is I. That is, people when they talk about the I thought, they highlight the thought, they miss the point that it is I. So in some context, Bhagavan may have said, attend to the I thought. But generally, he would simply say, attend to I.
Attend to I.
Whether it's a thought or not a thought is irrelevant. There is one thing we're all aware of, I, namely ourself. I is the first person pronoun, is the self-referential pronoun. It's referring to what we actually are. So what we have to attend to is what the word I refers to, namely ourself.
So observation,
Yeah.
investigation,
Yeah,
and
but it's observation, not it's not an objective observation.
not object observation.
It is a self-observation.
Self-observation. I'm not
And
doing it.
self doesn't mean the body, doesn't mean the mind, doesn't mean anything. It means only the awareness, that to which all these other things appear.
See, this is the whole.
So if I do the investigation and the observation, that's mean if maybe I did it a few times a day. I try to be that all the day, but I always sleep. The ego takes me over. It comes with something.
It's not ego takes you over. The one who is trying to investigate itself is ego.
Is ego.
Yes,
That is ego.
Ego gets carried away by its vasanas. Vasanas are what? Vasanas means inclinations. So Bhagavan referred to them as Vishaya vasanas. Vishaya means objects or phenomena. So Vishaya vasanas are the inclination to attend to things other than ourselves. In other words, objects or phenomena. So since ego cannot rise, stand, or flourish without constantly grasping things other than itself, as he says in verse 25, that is, grasping form it comes into being, grasping form it stands, grasping and feeding on forms it flourishes abundantly, leaving form it grasps form. So ego depends for its very existence upon grasping form. Grasping form means attending to things other than itself. Ego itself is formless. So grasping form means attending to anything other than itself. That is the very food on which ego depends for its survival. So as ego, we have very strong Vishaya vasanas. Vishayas are what he refers to in verse 25 as form. So all objects or phenomena are Vishayas. We, as ego, we have very strong inclination to attend to anything other than ourselves, because our very survival as ego depends upon that. So what happens is we try to attend to ourselves, but then we get carried away by our Vishaya vasanas. Under the sway of our Vishaya vasanas, we allow our attention to slip away from ourselves towards something or other, anything, doesn't matter what.
Yeah.
When you're struggling for survival, if you're drowning in the sea, you'll grasp any small thing to try and use it as a float. So ego will grasp anything other than itself, rather than hold on to itself. Because if it holds on to itself, that is its death sentence. Ego cannot survive so long as it is self-attentive. That's why he says, if sought, it takes flight. That means if we attend to it, if we observe it, it subsides and dissolves back into its source. So as soon as we as ego attend to ourselves, our very existence as ego begins to dissolve. Because because we are not yet willing to surrender ourselves completely, out of desperation for survival, we'll attend to something other than ourselves. Two things can happen. When we're trying to hold on to self-attentiveness, we can lose our self-attentiveness in one of two ways. Either we get carried away by our Vishaya vasanas to attend to something other than ourselves, or we slip into sleep. both are ways of avoiding self-attentiveness. If we hold on to self-attentiveness firmly, we cannot subside in sleep, and we cannot be carried away by anything else. But in order to hold on to self-attentiveness, requires all-consuming love. Because it is attending to ourself is complete surrender.
Complete surrender.
And surrender means, Bhagavan says it very beautifully in the next verse we're alluding now to, verse 26. He says, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. The reason for that is, everything there means all phenomena, all forms, all objects of any kind, whether physical object, mental object, they all appear only in the view of ego. So nothing exists independent of ego, because all things seem to exist only in the view of ego.
The view of ego.
So, as he says, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Everything means all phenomena, everything other than what is ever existing, namely Satchit. Satchit means being awareness, which is what we actually are. So if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ego itself is everything. Why does he say ego itself is everything? When we are dreaming, we see a world full of so many trees, buildings, roads, mountains, rivers, oceans, people, animals, all sorts of things there we see in a dream. But when we wake up from a dream, we recognize that those things had no existence independent of ourselves. We were seeing ourselves as all those things. That is, the mind sees itself as the dream world, basically. So in that sense, Bhagavan says, ego itself is everything. That is all that we are seeing. We as ego are seeing ourselves as all of this.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. The dream example is very good.
But the important sentence in this verse is the last sentence, which is why I referred to this. He says, therefore, investigating what this is giving up everything. Investigating what this is means investigating what ego is. Since, as he had clarified in the previous verse, the nature of ego, which is to rise, stand, and flourish by attending to anything other than itself, but to subside by attending to itself. Since the nature of ego is such, if you investigate ego, ego will subside and dissolve back into its source. Since everything else depends for its seeming existence upon ego, when ego subsides, everything else subsides along with it. When ego dissolves, everything else dissolves along with it. So, self-investigation is complete self-surrender. And self-surrender entails not only surrendering our identity, but everything that comes along with our identity, namely this entire world, with all its science and history and geography and politics and wars and famines and joys and sorrows and everything that is, all of samsara. That's why he says in verse 24 that ego itself is samsara. Samsara is nothing other than ego. So it all dissolves when we investigate, who am I? In other words, when we turn our attention back towards ourselves. So are we yet willing to let go of everything? Not just temporary. We happily let go of everything when we fall asleep at night.
Yeah.
Because we are very sure next morning we're going to wake up and it's all going to, the whole world's still going to be here, we hope. And we carry on our life. But if we were offered the prospect of going to sleep eternally, we would all say, "Oh no, 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 no," because we're too attached to this. We're too
Absolutely.
attached to our existence.
The daylight.
Yeah.
The daylight. Is it
This is
Jiva?
why the moment of death is a very favorable moment for self-investigation, because at the moment of death, we are being forcibly separated
Mm,
from our present identity and everything involved with this present identity.
mm,
So that is a very good opportunity for us to
mm.
hold on to self-attentiveness. But we will be able to hold on to self-attentiveness at that time only if we have persistently practiced self-attentiveness as much as possible throughout the waking and dream states in this life.
So if we practice this in our waking and dream states, this 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 break
Yes.
from this identification at the time of our, I don't even like to use the word death because we're not born or death. When we
Bodily
leave
death.
this body, when we leave this body, if we had practiced in our waking state
If we practiced
phase,
enough, yes.
then we have a chance to
It's a
not
very
come back.
it's a very good opportunity.
Oh, that I love that. I love
Oh
that.
man,
I love that.
I'm gonna work
But
very
That's a
hard on
good one.
that.
That's a
but
good one.
this is
So,
why in Gita and everything it is said, at the moment of death, what you think of is what you become. So why in the Bhakti Marga, it's very strongly emphasized you should think of God at the moment of death. But it's also emphasized you can think of God at the moment of death only if you've been spent your life thinking of God. If you
Yeah.
spend your life thinking of your business, of your
Right.
money, of your
Yeah,
family,
yeah,
of your
I know.
this and that, if you're
The crap, the
yeah,
crap.
all these things will come to your mind. This is a very very significant thing about Bhagavan. If the fear of death comes to us,
Mm,
what will be our reaction? We
yeah,
begin to think of all the things that are most dear to us.
yeah, yeah.
We think of our identity. We think of those who are dear to us. We think of, so the mind, the fear of death drives the mind, the normal mind outwards.
Yes,
But in the case of Bhagavan, when the fear of death came,
yeah,
though he described it later in words, but though he described it in words, he said, though he described it in words, it actually happened without any thought. It happened spontaneously in a split second. His immediate response was to turn within. But in order to help us to understand, they have some idea of what happened. He says, when the thought of death came, he looked within to see, when this body dies, will I also die?
yes.
So
Well,
he didn't think about his mother or his brothers or his sister or his school friends or anything. He thought about his own existence. He turned his attention back towards his own being.
mm,
And that's why he merged.
merged. I see. And is that
Yeah.
called is that called Jiva Mukti when you're a waking,
Well,
walking, living?
Jiva Mukti, the reason it's called Jiva Mukti means liberation in life.
In
Yeah,
life?
liberation.
Like uh, Jivan there means life. So the implication of Jiva Mukti is while the body is still living, attaining Mukti.
Mm,
But, and when the body of a Jiva Mukta passes away, they are said to attain Videha Mukti, which is bodiless liberation.
mm,
But these differences exist only in the view of others,
mm, mm.
because when ego is destroyed,
Yeah.
everything is, as he says, investigating what this is giving up everything. So body, mind, world, everything ceases to exist as soon as we know ourselves as we actually are, because all these things exist only in the view of
Of
ego.
ego.
So
Gotcha.
it's for the benefit of others.
Yeah.
Like in some schools of thought, some people believe that there's no such thing as jiva mukti. But you can only attain mukti at the end of a life when you go to Goloka or Vaikuntha or Kailasa, the world of your beloved God. That is mukti. That's their idea of mukti. So they think there's no such thing as jiva mukti. So long as you've got a body, you're in bondage. It's only after death that you can, if you're a good enough devotee, you will go to the world of your beloved God. That is mukti. That is, though the idea of mukti is common to all dharmic religion, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all the multitude of different forms of Hinduism, there are many different conceptions of what mukti means. The term nirvana means extinction. So that comes close to the Advaitic concept of mukti, which is complete extinction of ego. But that's not how mukti is usually it's understood by the majority of people.
I understand.
So in Advaita, they emphasize jiva mukti is possible. You don't have to wait to go to some other world, to some heavenly, some divine world to attain mukti. You can attain mukti here and now.
Here and now.
And also it explains, how do we explain the existence of jnanis like Bhagavan? They still, in our view, Bhagavan still seems to be in a body.
Right.
In his view, there's no body or world or anything, but in our view, he seems to be in a body.
Yeah.
So to explain the existence of to explain how these teachings can be conveyed, the concept of jiva mukti is there. But it is not, we need to take the concept with a pinch of salt, because we need to understand jiva mukti is true only from the perspective of those who are still in bondage.
Yes.
Like we can point out Bhagavan, he's a jiva mukta, he's a jnani.
Yeah.
But what are we pointing out as a jiva mukta or a jnani? We're pointing out a person.
Right. They were still
But
talking.
Bhagavan is not that person.
He's not that person. Yeah. Yeah.
What is shining through that person, that is jnana itself.
He's the
But
light.
jnana is not limited to that person.
Yeah,
So the form of the guru is not real. What shines through the form of guru, that is the real guru, that is what is real. That is our own reality.
It makes sense, Michael. I like that. I like that. I can at least intellectualize it in the mind. Yes, but when I'm looking at Bhagavan in those pictures or those books or those movie screens or whatever, I see this form, right?
Yeah.
I see it in my perspective, but from his perspective, there is no perspective because he's in the oneness of
He's
Sat.
not in the oneness, he is the oneness.
He is
the one. He is the one and only thing that exists.
exists.
Because he's the one and only thing that exists, he doesn't see us as other than himself.
Right.
So in his view, no one is in bondage, no one is in ignorance.
Yeah,
That's why Bhagavan of his own accord didn't give any teachings to anyone. You could live for 50 years with Bhagavan, and if you never asked him anything, he wouldn't say anything. It's because people ask that he gives the teachings. Because in his view, there's no one ignorant. That's one thing. Another thing is, because he doesn't see us as other than himself, he loves us as himself. That is why his love is infinite, all embracing. There's no one who's excluded from his love. Whether
it's wonderful, Michael.
Whether Hitler or Stalin or anything. In Bhagavan's view, all are himself, and he loves all as himself.
So that's why you keep saying, you do mention that a lot, with the total surrender, the ingredient, the base ingredient is love, unconditional love, pure love.
Yes. But
And
that love is contrary to the nature of ego.
Yes.
The nature of ego is desire, because ego depends upon things other than itself. The true love is love for what actually is, which is our own being. And that it brings about the dissolution of ego. So since the love that is required is contrary to the very nature of ego, where does that love come from? It cannot come from ego. It can only come from the reality of ego, namely the pure being that is Bhagavan.
I love it. I love that. That's really good, Michael. That's touching.
So how grace works, Bhagavan often used to say, grace is not something up in heaven that one day is going to descend down upon us. Grace is in our heart as our own being.
Grace, heart, being, love.
Whatever love we have to follow this path, whatever bhakti we have, that is grace working through us.
That's grace.
And Bhagavan, this is another thing Bhagavan often emphasized, grace needs to work through us because we have to cooperate with grace. Grace is trying to pull us back within. But if we're always rushing outwards, enthusiastically rushing out towards the world, as we all are, we're obstructing the work of grace. And grace is very gentle. It's slowly kindling in our heart the requisite love. But it does it very gently and very slowly. So Bhagavan will never kill us until we are willing to give ourselves wholly to him.
Beautiful. It's beautiful, isn't it? Wow. It's the truth, what you spoke. You know, it's
Well, I'm just pointing out what Bhagavan said. So yes, of course, it is the truth.
It's truth. It's truth.
But not everyone will like to hear this truth. But if we relish this truth, if this truth appeals to us,
yeah,
that is a very, very great blessing.
What I love about it, Michael, if you just hearing the word, I almost get tearful and emotional about it because as you recall, we met right after our son passing,
Yeah,
Diane, which was all 3.5 years ago, and was when I first met you. And death, this body, mind, identification, blah, blah, all this stuff that we're just talked about. But when you concluded with this grace, with love, with surrender, and knowing the absolute knowingness of the essential being of what we are, there is no such thing as death.
no.
That's a huge release.
Yeah.
Regarding my son, our son.
Yeah. There's
Right?
no such thing as death, and there's no such thing as separation. Separation is just an appearance created by our rising as ego, just like birth and death are an appearance created by our rising as ego. So the root problem is ego. And to put an end to ego, all we have to do is to observe it, to be self-attentive. So simple, but it requires all-consuming love.
Yeah.
That is where we fall short.
We all fall short.
Yeah.
Sure.
But though we fall short now, we can cultivate that love by persevering in following this path.
Persevering and following. We got a few 4 minutes. Go ahead. You got a question?
Yeah, so that we can practice this. I mean, I try to practice this, during my whole day, but I always sleep, but I do my best.
Yes.
And I'm going to add the observation. So whatever I'm going through, so I observe it, I'm aware about it, and I'm gonna surrender. Surrender, that's mean I'm not gonna do anything about how I feel. I'm not gonna reach outside to fix it or make it better or get it or push it or anything. So I do try that, but I think like you explained very good. We're just gonna have to persist in that and remember to have love, like you said, true love, unconditional love and grace. Then just try to remind myself of that or as much as I can during the day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. It is worth it.
Yes. One important thing Sadhu Om used to say, Bhagavan never asked us to succeed in practicing self-investigation. He asked us to try. So long as we are trying, we are moving in the right direction. Success, that's in his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All we have to do is to try our best to be self-attentive.
Yeah.
Success, he will take care of that.
Wow.
Yeah, and as I did practice these, there was some things I did go, in my life, and then really my ego raise up and gets strong emotion. As much I do the investigation and I observe, I know how that make me upset or make me happy, whatever it is, and just surrender to it, live it. Now, when it happens again, I don't feel that. I don't feel ego coming out because that's my ego. I know, oh yeah, what I don't feel it coming. Even if it comes, it's like the way it's you feel it, like the tension of it is just slows down, diminish, then exactly like how you explain it. That ego on that part, on that subject for me actually disappear
Yeah,
and surprise me, like, oh, I'm feeling okay.
yeah. Bhagavan has given us such a simple remedy for ego. Just watch it. Just keep an eye on this ego and it will not rise. And when ego doesn't rise, all the anger, the resentment, the jealousy, the desire, everything else subsides along because all that is only for ego. So to the extent that ego subsides, everything subsides.
That's on
Subsides,
the next
yeah,
page.
So
yeah,
all we need to do is to try our best to be self-attentive.
Because that's the
yeah,
root. That's the tap root. If we
Yes,
get
yes,
that tap root, everything else, the rest of the
yeah.
tree is gone.
And
yeah,
that is the pinnacle of bhakti. That is self-surrender.
Self-surrender, bhakti, love. Love is
yeah.
Yes,
bhakti.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, Michael. It's really good, Michael. Do have a hard stop here in a couple minutes, about 2 minutes, six, I think our Zoom meeting is going to end. I don't know what to say. I could just say thank you. We love you. You're
Yeah.
doing wonderful
Well, all
work.
thanks to Bhagavan, because I'm just pointing out what Bhagavan said.
Well, thank you very much. We are really grateful to have you. Thank you for explaining all. You did good job.
Yeah,
Really
his
very, very
his
helpful.
his
Yeah,
readings, his writings, he's
Yeah.
constantly doing everything. He lives in okay. Well, we got to run, Michael.
yeah,
Uh, what can I say? Post it, brother, on the YouTube
yeah,
later. We
Thank
need
yeah.
to
you.
watch this one.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you,
Okay,
Mike.
thank you.
Thank you,
Namo
Mike.
Ramana.